Medtronic or Tandem? Today we're pitting the two insulin systems against one another through the eyes of a user who has had diabetes since the mid-1950s. Welcome to the show. I'm Justin. I have type 1 diabetes, and on here I talk all things diabetes tech, news, and management with industry leaders, physicians, and those thriving with diabetes and using the tech themselves. Last week we aired one of my favorite episodes, the inspiring story and journey of Michael Dardenelle. The 78-year-old has had type 1 diabetes since adolescence and has been through many health scares, but has persevered through it all. It was a moving interview, and I hope you'll give it a listen next. Michael leads multiple online diabetes support groups, and he's kept me in the loop about his switch from the Tandem t:slim X2 to the Medtronic 780G. I was very excited to have him on. I wanted to hear how the algorithm was, what his results were, and his time in range on the 780G, how the new continuous glucose monitor, or well, older Guardian sensor was treating him versus the Dexcom sensor he was on with the t:slim. We also talk about the Simplera and what that could look like with the system he's on now. And we talk about what he misses from the Tandem system. I want to hear your thoughts on this. Have you used either of these systems? Have you used both? Let us know what that transition was like down in the comments. I want to see that before and after. Keep in mind that anything you hear on this show or any of my pages is not medical advice and is for educational purposes only. Always consult with a physician before making changes to your healthcare. Mike, welcome back to the show. It's so good to see you. I'm so happy you're here.
You too, Justin. Thank you very much, and thanks for having me back.
Our conversation, that episode is one of my favorites. You know, you've had diabetes for a while now. How old were you when you were diagnosed?
I was 9.
9. So, I mean, what is that? Over 60 years with diabetes?
70. Coming up to 70.
70 years. And you just had such a fascinating story. And it was so cool to hear about, you know, what it was like when you were younger, all of the different things, including like the whole test with peeing and then lighting it on fire or lighting it with a lighter or a match, right? To get the test results. So it was just it was cool because it put a lot of things into perspective for me and how good things are today and how fortunate I am while diabetes can really suck to have the technology we have today. So thank you for coming on then and telling us all about that.
You know, I really consider myself lucky because when I was younger, when I was a kid, I didn't know what diabetes was. Everybody said, you can't have sugar, you can't have sugar. Well, that meant, of course, that I could. And during my school years, I remember taking my insulin and in the morning. And once I took it in the morning, I was good for the day. I ate what I wanted. I did not take care of myself. So how I have lived to this age with 70 years of diabetes behind me is nothing short of a miracle. I don't know how it happened because if I took care of myself that way, I should have been dead by now. But I guess luck was with me, and I really started taking care of myself with an insulin pump about 25 years ago. In fact, it was February of '99 when I first started my first pump. It was a Medtronic pump, a Model 530. They didn't have CGMs at the time, and unfortunately, it was only 25 years ago that I really took this disease by the neck, you know, and did something about it. Maybe that's what's kept me going for 25 and now 70 years.
You push for the best, and maybe not at the beginning, but you're resilient and a bit inspiring, to say the least. How much were you told that there would be a cure for type 1 by now? I always hear, oh, there's going to be a cure in 5 to 10 years, that people have been told that. Did you hear that throughout your time?
Not very often. A member of the City of Hope out here in Los Angeles for many, many years. My mom and dad were presidents of our chapter, and we lost a cousin to leukemia, so they named a chapter of City of Hope after him. Well, then City of Hope started dealing in with diabetes. There's going to be a cure. There's islet transplants. There are things that are coming up. So yeah, that gave me some hope. But I think I heard more about it because I was part of the City of Hope group rather than just a lay person hearing about it or reading about it in the paper. But so far, nothing. You know, I hope a cure comes in your lifetime. I doubt that it'll come in mine because I'm so advanced aged and have had it for so long. And there are criteria for islet implants that I don't meet, things like that. But my hope is that for someone like you in your lifetime and the others out there, if they are new to this, if they're young, if they're middle-aged, I hope to see a cure for you in your lifetime. And that will mean that everything that I've done has not been done in vain.
Yeah, I hope we see a cure in my lifetime. That would be
now,
life-changing.
I don't know.
There are solutions, at least, for delaying the onset, which are coming out, which is exciting, but it's still not the same as a cure, never having to deal with this, because while it's become so second nature to me, it still does completely change the way I live and so many others live, and the anxieties of highs and lows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I could be looking down at my pump for a blood sugar or pricking my finger for a blood sugar, and it's just, like you said, it's second nature.
So I wanted to bring you back on the show to talk about your transition from Tandem to Medtronic. But before we get there, I want to hear a little bit more about your tech journey so far. So you told us your first pump 25 years ago was a Medtronic. When did you then get CGM? Take us through, I guess, the movement in technology that kind of brings you to today.
I don't recall CGMs until the Model 600 series came out. I don't remember when that was, but I started on the Medtronic 530 pump, and it was really nothing more than a different insulin delivery than injections or multiple daily injections, MDIs. It seemed like I was always giving myself an injection, and it got to be old hat real fast. So when the CGMs came, that's why I got the pump, and that was a game changer for me. I mean, that was a major change for me to go from injections to a pump. I was curious. I was nervous. I was apprehensive. I was anxious about it. And my doctor at the time said, I really think this is for you. So he started me on the Medtronic 530. And from there, I believe it went, I want to say the 570 or 580. They just keep going up. And then the first 600 series I had, I believe, was a 630. And that may have been the time for the CGMs. I'm not sure. I mean, I've been on CGMs for so long, I've lost track.
What were they like? What were they like when you first got it?
Similar to the one that Medtronic uses now, different technology, but same basic type of insertion and hookup and things like that. They say that it's better now than it was before. I question that.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that. When you first got the CGM, though, how many days did it last?
They've always only supposed to last 7 days.
Okay.
They say up to 7 days.
Okay.
And I'd be lucky if I got 4 days out of it, to be honest with you. That's disappointing.
Still today on your Medtronic?
Yeah, still today. In fact, the last time I changed was Saturday, and I had it on since Wednesday. So I only got 3 days out of it. I couldn't figure out why. I thought, well, okay, I will take the transmitter off, recharge it a little bit, and put it back on. And it worked for another few hours. You're not supposed to do that, by the way. Those of you out there, don't do that. You're really not supposed to do that. But in the interest of the cost of the sensors, even though my insurance pays for it, they're still costly. And when the insurance has to lay out more money for things like this, for durable medical equipment that don't last as long as they're supposed to, and they have to buy more, that's what shoots our insurance costs up. Our insurance premiums go up because of things like that. Insurance costs in general go up because of things like that. So if there was something that lasted as long as it's supposed to last, that would be wonderful. But unfortunately, I don't find, for me anyway, it may be different for someone else, but for me, the Medtronic sensor does not last nearly as long as I had hoped when I made the switch.
This episode is sponsored by Omnipod. You guys know that staying connected to the tech world is important to me, but what's also important to me is my insulin pump. Omnipod 5 is tubeless and waterproof, which means I never have to disconnect from automated insulin delivery, even when I take a shower, go swimming, or go to the gym. Staying connected to my insulin pump means I'm spending more time in automated mode, which ultimately helps me spend more time in range. See if you're eligible for a 30-day trial by visiting omnipod.com/diabetic. On there, you'll see full safety and risk information and trial terms. Again, that's omnipod.com/diabetic. Let's talk about the switch to Medtronic. So when we had first spoken, you told me that you were switching away from Tandem. You were very excited about the switch to Medtronic. How long were you on Tandem?
4 years.
And that was the X2, T-Slim
Yes,
X2.
T-Slim X2.
Tell me about that pump. What did you like about that pump?
What I really liked, number one, was the size, the user-friendly setup. It was a series of really just touching a screen to make your changes, as opposed to the Medtronic where you have to physically push a button and do something like that. And that's hard for old people like me that have arthritis to physically. You wouldn't think it's difficult, but it is. Touching it is a lot easier. The Medtronic pump is giving me better time in range. And right now, that's the only thing going for it. It's not as user-friendly as the Tandem was. The Tandem, I think, is more advanced with the sensors, especially now with the G7. I know Medtronic is coming out with the Simplera, and I believe it's out now, but just not available for prescription for those of us here in the United States. And I'm looking forward to that if I still continue with the Medtronic. But again, that one only has 7 days as well. I thought it would be a 10-day, I thought they would be in competition with the Dexcom G7.
You were on Tandem for 4 years. What made you switch to Medtronic? If you liked all of these things about it, why leave that system and go back to Medtronic? The
main reason is because of the control that they promised I would get, plus the fact that it measures blood sugars every 5 minutes instead of every 60 minutes. And it gives you corrections more often than the Tandem did.
Well, so they both take glucose readings every 5 minutes, but you're saying the Medtronic more often corrects from those every 5 minutes versus the 60 minutes for Tandem.
Exactly. Okay.
Yes,
they both give readings every 5 minutes, and you can see the change every 5 minutes on your sugar pixel, on your pump, on your phone, whatever device you're using. But it doesn't do anything about corrections every 60 minutes. That to me was not good.
And that's a bolus correction, right? Because both systems will change the basal to adapt to highs and lows, but you're saying that a bolus correction is what the big difference there.
Right. They're bolus corrections, and you can actually see it on the pump or on your device, in the app, where it gave bolus corrections and how much it gave without my even knowing it. Tandem did not do that. Now, is Tandem coming up with something like that? I heard that they are. But until that happens, that's, to me, is a big, big difference, because my diabetes is so brittle. Now, that doesn't mean that it corrects every 5 minutes, because you don't need a correction every 5 minutes, but it's capable of doing that. And it has done that before when my sugar is extremely high. I can look at my app, and I'll see there's a correction here. 5 minutes later, another correction here of 0.2 units. 5 minutes later, a 0.3 units. 10 minutes later, 0.1 units. So it's constantly making corrections if needed. To me, the Medtronic operates more like a pancreas does. That's what a pancreas does, is it's minute by minute by minute. You don't have that kind of control with an insulin pump until they come out with one that has glucagon as well as insulin. I think I saw one of your videos about a pump like that.
I think that there is a lot more work we can do even with just insulin pumps. And many of them are working on creating fully closed loop, just insulin pumps that, keep you above 70% range. Medtronic being a bit closer to that potentially with their algorithm and the ability to autocorrect so often. What have been some of the advantages? Tell me about a moment where you saw the Medtronic algorithm come in and do something that you weren't used to on Tandem.
Sometimes it gives me more insulin than I would have given. I don't really care for that, and it'll send me into a low. As far as which one I really couldn't even say which one I prefer, because they're both excellent pumps. There's no doubt about that. They're both excellent pumps, far beyond, I believe, the technology of Omnipod and some of these other pumps that are out there. Tandem and Medtronic are the right now the Cadillacs of insulin pumps. But sometimes I feel like I'm driving a Chevy. It's not doing what I had hoped for and what it would do. The other night, I went to bed with my blood sugar at 101, according to the pump. So, of course, it wasn't going to give me a correction bolus because it was well within range of not doing that. So just to cover myself before bed, I had like about 15 grams of something. I don't know what it was, just to cover me through the night. And stupidly, I took my blood glucose right after I had that little snack, and my finger stick was at 175. That was very disappointing for Medtronic. And I wear a Dexcom and a Medtronic together. So if one fails, I have the other as a backup. And at that time, the Dexcom was 173, 2 points away.
Why do you take that snack then? Why didn't you test your blood sugar first if you had the Dexcom already saying 173?
Because I felt it more important to eat something at the time instead of taking my blood glucose first.
Yeah.
Certainly that's the way to do it.
All sensors can have these moments where they're very off occasionally. Is this something you're seeing often with Medtronic, that the sensor is constantly off by this much? Or was it just that moment, or is it a moment here and there, not, sporadically?
More often than not, I'm seeing a big difference between the two. In fact, I've started charting them, and when I finish charting them, maybe at the end of the week, I'll send it to you and show it to you. Once I had a reading of 73 on Medtronic and 140 on Dexcom, and the Dexcom was closer to my actual blood glucose. So that does not make me happy.
How much trust do you have in the Medtronic system?
On a percentage-wise, I'd say maybe 75%.
Did you have more trust in Tandem?
I do.
And it sounds like that's because of the sensor.
Yes. One of the other reasons that I went to Medtronic instead of Tandem those damn cartridges in the Tandem are so difficult to fill. It's like taking several steps to get insulin into the cartridge, out of the bottle, into the reservoir, then into the cartridge, and looking for that little sweet spot is difficult, especially if you have bad eyesight. I have macular degeneration in my left eye, so it's difficult to find that little sweet spot to get that needle in. And the fact that they're black cartridges instead of clear cartridges means that if it says I'm low on insulin, I can pull the cartridge out. And if it was clear, I could see, is it really low? How much do I really have left? Medtronic, the insulin goes into the very reservoir that you put into the pump. Because it's transparent, you can actually see how much insulin is in it.
Oh, wow.
And you can't do that with the Tandem, and I don't like that.
That's an interesting comment about the filling, because it's funny. T-Slim you found very easy to use with controls, but then the cartridge is harder to use, harder to see. And then vice versa, the Medtronic, the controls are a little harder to use, but the filling is easier to use. And it's important for these companies to hear this, because there are people who are like you. There are people who have no vision or very, very little vision, who these things are very important to as well. I've had someone from the task force in the low vision blind community come on and talk about all this too. So especially when it comes to a set, it sounds like they need to be designing these.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Right. Like I said, if Tandem would make their cartridges clear instead of black, what's the difference between black plastic and clear plastic? Unless they're having a sale on black plastic.
Less ink.
There's.
Yeah.
I really think that would make it more user-friendly to be able to physically hold up that cartridge and see how much insulin is in there. Do I really need to replace it? It says I have 20 units left, but do I really have 20 units or do I have 15? You can't tell. And I think that's a very, very poor selling point for Tandem. They're both excellent pumps. Don't get me wrong. They're both excellent pumps. The technology that goes into creating an insulin pump is beyond anything that I could ever imagine. Unfortunately, they're in competition with each other. And they will tell you that. Tandem will say, well, we're better because of this. And Medtronic will say, oh, no, we're better because of this. Okay, guys, stop fighting. You're both good pumps. It's really a matter of almost personal preference and preference that your endocrinologist or your CDE might be looking at.
Yeah, we see that a lot, where certain offices will have preferences and tend to give their patients or push their patients to that piece of technology, which a lot of people have said that they're happy to have come to my channel to see everything that's available because their office doesn't tell them that. So it sounds like one of the big sticking points for you is the Guardian sensor on the Medtronic pump right now. There is the new Simplera coming. I've tried it myself. I've put it on twice. The readings were very accurate for me. So that's good. May not be the case for everyone. I believe the technology, the sensor technology it's using is still similar to the Guardian, but it's just very easy to put on, and maybe there's some more hardware changes when it comes to the accuracy, but it's worked well for me. So I'm hopeful that that sensor will make this a more appealing system. Will you wait before you make a decision to leave this system? Are you going to wait for Simplera to at least see how that goes and see if that will give you what you need in order to be happy on the system?
They will probably come out and be available to me before I make the switch. Now, I just recently changed insurance medical groups, and my new medical group, I have not seen the new endocrinologist yet. And I can't make any changes like that until I physically sit down with the endocrinologist and say, here's my thought. Now we're going to go over everything that you and I are going over right now. Why don't I like the Medtronic? Do I want to go back to Tandem? Do I want to try the Mobi system? I've looked at the Mobi system too, and they have a reservoir fill system similar to Medtronic. I don't know if my insurance will pay for that because I've only had the Medtronic now since July. But the thing is, my Medtronic pump was purchased by the first medical group that I was in. Now that I have a new medical group, maybe they will allow it. The thing is, they both go through the same insurance company. So the insurance company may deny it. And typically when I make a major change like that, before I even make the change, I have my letter of appeal already typed out and ready to go and, citing why I want the change, even though it may not be time for it yet. These pumps are not cheap. And, out-of-pocket costs can be anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000. If I went to Tandem and said, I want to buy a new Mobi pump, I don't have insurance, but I'll get you a prescription from my doctor, it's going to cost me close to $8,000. I want to go with the Medtronic pump, the Tandem pump, because the buttons are easier to push. They don't care about that. Or the fact that they have a clear cartridge with Medtronic instead of a black cartridge with Tandem. They don't care. My time and range is better with one pump over another. That's important. The fact that I have to replace sensors so often, that's important because that helps keep the cost down with the insurance company. If they don't have to buy something every 2 or 3 days and keep it for 10 days, that's an important factor for them. Again, it's
so you're stating there, you're not only stating the case for you, but you're stating the case for why this could be a cheaper option for them in the long run.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm surprised at the direction this conversation has gone a bit with your experience with Medtronic. You were so excited about it. You've been emailing me a few times throughout the process, mostly good stuff until kind of more recently with this turn. But and hopefully with the CGM, the newer one could wind up making it a better experience. The controls aren't going to change, at least right now, but the algorithm seems to be strong. Time and range is good. What about the extended infusion set? They have an infusion set that lasts 7 days, which that is a long time compared to the 3 days that you're seeing on other ones. My Omnipod's 3 days. I want 7 days to be a norm. Is it lasting 7 days? Is it getting close to 7 days? Still better than 3.
As we say in ASL, yes, it's
Wow.
going very, very well with the extended. I've had my infusion set in here now for, I don't know how long, probably beyond the 7 days. But I do like the extended. I wish the two of those companies would say, that Tandem says, well, Medtronic says, well, we have an extended infusion set, so nah. And Tandem says, well, we're coming out with one, so nah.
And Tandem is coming out with one. Tandem is working on an extended infusion set. We can only hope that Omnipod is working on a new version that lasts 7 days. That sounds magical. The biggest thing for me is having to replace my Omnipod every 3 days, but the idea of, yes, a new Omnipod would need a larger chamber, which I have a whole video with what I want to see on the next gen Omnipod coming out. It should be on YouTube soon. And this is part of it is, just leaving these on longer. So you're saying, obviously the CGM having to be replaced all the time and the numbers being wrong, but if that CGM issue was resolved with the new sensor, this sounds like a great system.
I think it is. I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal to have an extended sensor on because, extended reservoir, because I've had infusion sets on before past the 3 days that they're supposed to be on. for one reason or another. I forget, I don't want to, it's a pain, whatever the reason. And I haven't had a problem with them. I did have an extended infusion set on a couple weeks ago that only lasted about 4 days before I start feeling the pain of it being there, and I had to take it out and put it. That's going to happen with any infusion set. Do you hit scar tissue? Do you hit fatty tissue? Did it go in at the wrong angle? Who knows? These things, as part of life, these things happen. I can say that with this, ever since I've been on Medtronic, I don't recall having a kinked cannula.
Wow.
And,
And how often would that happen with Tandem? You've been on Medtronic since July, right? July, August.
Right. And I have
That's 6 months.
Right. I have not had a kinked cannula. I told somebody once that I had a kinked cannula, and they said, well, there's pills or penicillin for something like that. But in any event, I would have the kinked cannula in my Tandem frequently, maybe once every 3 insertions.
That's pretty often.
To the point where once I had to start using what they call True Steel. And the True Steel infusion set is a metal needle that actually sits under your skin as metal. Your body doesn't like things like that in it, and it will try to reject it. What it is the body is rejecting that foreign object under your skin, so it bothers you. But a kinked cannula, I've pulled them out before where instead of the cannula being like this, it'll be like this. Literally on its side, like that.
Today's episode is sponsored by T1D Exchange. You can directly make an impact on diabetes healthcare, treatments, and technology by participating in the T1D Exchange registry. It starts with a simple survey about your life with T1D, and it only takes about 15 minutes. After that, you'll have a personal portal with ongoing T1D study and survey opportunities. Plus, some of these studies even offer compensation. Signing up with the link in the show notes helps support my channel, and it allows me to continue putting out free content. You can sign up at t1dexchange.org/diabetic or click that link in today's show notes. Have you spoken to Medtronic about your issue with the sensors? Is this a common issue? I know you're all over the Facebook with like different groups. Are other people having the same issue? Is this a known issue people are having? And what does Medtronic say about it? Why are they saying 7 days?
That I don't know. I have mentioned it to my my sales rep, my trainer, several people at Medtronic. And they say the only thing we can tell you is that it depends. They're going to give you an excuse after an excuse instead of a reason. I don't want to know if it's because you have it on your leg or you have it on it's not supposed to go there. It's supposed to go on the back of your arm, or it's supposed to go, don't put it on your abdomen, put it on the back of your arm. That's not the answer. The sensors read interstitial fluid. As most people who wear CGMs know, it is not a blood glucose monitor. It's an interstitial fluid monitor, and that's why the lag behind the blood glucose and the interstitial fluid is the way it is. But I do not believe that it's because of my placement. I believe I had two Medtronic sensors fail within 2 days of each other. Is it the lot of sensors that I have? I don't know. I would contact them for replacements. And while it's good that they will replace these, it shouldn't happen. At this stage of my life, I'm supposed to be able to take things easier rather than more difficult. And the sensors, the diabetes, the pump, things like that get in the way. Aside from my physical ailments that I can't walk anymore, that's beside the point. That just adds to it.
Yeah, you switched to this system because you wanted an easier experience, a more seamless experience. And while some of the results may be better, the user experience isn't great.
Right.
Are other people in the community experiencing this?
Some people are swearing at Tandem and Dexcom for their system. This is so ridiculous. I'm not getting 10 days out of my sensor. I'm only getting 7. Or in Medtronic, I'm only getting 2 days. Or I only got 6 days out of it. Count yourself lucky that you got 6 days out of it, really. And I think that if in training, Medtronic would, well, both pumps would tell you it's possible that your sensor may fail sooner than 7 days or 10 days. So if this happens, let us know. But there is no guarantee. Getting a sensor that only lasts 2 or 3 days instead of up to 7 is not acceptable. And the same thing with Tandem. If it only lasts for 6 days instead of 10 days, that's not acceptable.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say everyone has a different experience with how long it lasts. I, with my G7s, find that it lasts the full 10 days, the 10 and a half days with the grace period, almost every time. Very rare will I have a failed sensor. I can't remember the last time it happened. But then you have all these people on social media saying, oh, I can't get any to last this long. And I do hear with younger children that that is the case often with a G7. And with the Medtronic sensor, the Guardian, you seem to be having a pretty poor experience with how long that lasts. But I'm sure there's people out there that it lasts the full 7 days every time. And maybe that's a body type thing. Maybe these things it's not something that is always taken into account or told to people. Hey, if you're this old, then it may not last as long. If you're this young, it may not last as long. And it would be interesting to kind of see what people's experiences are with their body type, their age, maybe even their race, you know. And Medtronic they have the Simplera coming out, but they've teamed up with Abbott to bring a new CGM, a proprietary Libre powered CGM for the Medtronic space. It seems like Medtronic is very well aware of issues with their CGMs and are working to fix that. How fast will it happen? Hopefully fast if they want to be considered. I mean, you know, it's a good system, a good algorithm, and it'd be great, you know, if the whole system was working for people like you.
It was, but you know, as I'm sure you and everybody else out there is aware, everybody's different. Let's talk about the CGMs. Just because your sensor works wonderfully for you doesn't mean that I'm going to have the same results. I'm different than you are. My age is different. My skin may be different. Any number of different, I may have more illnesses than you do, any number of different things. I must say that the Tandem, the Dexcom sensor, I find a lot less failures than I do with the Guardian sensor. And I like the idea of the G7 sensor that it goes on like that.
And Simplera will be like that too.
That's what I'm looking forward to. Now, I must say that I have found that with the Guardian sensor, it seems to connect more seamlessly than the G7 does. I've got to kind of monkey around on the device to get the thing, you know, set up and take the picture and do this and do that. Whereas with the Guardian sensor, I put it in and within seconds it says sensor connected. Do you want to start a new sensor? I mean, I can do that within 10 seconds.
You know, all these companies, you've said it earlier in this conversation, they're all better at some things and not as good at some things. And everyone at least is progressing up, but certain things are lagging behind them. So it sounds like, you know, Medtronic has a little ways to go with their CGM. What is, in the general tech landscape, is there something you'd like to see come to all the systems?
I would like to see them all basically operate the same as another. But right now, they're butting heads. You know, Medtronic says this, Tandem says, well, we're better here. Medtronic, Tandem, and it goes up like that. If they could find a common ground, why could the T-Slim not be designed with a different cartridge system or a different reservoir filling system? Why couldn't Medtronic, why couldn't they use more of a touch screen rather than a push button screen? If they could all come together for the good of the patients they serve, I think that would, maybe not in my lifetime, but I would love to see a pump that combined the best of both worlds.
Yeah, at least we're seeing more interoperability with continuous glucose monitors and the option with pumps to choose which CGM you want. Omnipod now supports Libre 2 Plus, as well as the Dexcom sensors. Beta Bionics supports all of them. Speaking of Beta Bionics, is that a pump that you've ever considered? It's a little different. Beta Bionics, the iLet.
Not really.
Why not?
Because I'm moderately happy with what I have. At my age, I don't know if I want to try something that new. Yeah. If I was your age, if I was considerably younger than I am, and I think, let's give that a shot. But I guess being from the old school and set in my ways, I don't know that I may not even qualify because of my age and my length of time with diabetes.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming on. It's been great to hear your experience with Medtronic. Obviously not the best one so far, but I hope that it gets better. And I want to hear, once you have access to the Simplera Sync, the version of the Simplera that's compatible with the pump, once you have those looping, I want to check in, whether it's just, send me an email, or I want to at least let everyone know who listened to this show what that experience was like, because then that changes a lot for you.
As you always say, don't look at this as medical advice. Justin and I are not doctors. I'm an MD by initial only, and that's where it stops. We're just giving you our experiences, our hopes, our strengths, our weaknesses, but it's not medical advice. If you want medical advice, you know where to go to get that. Be your own judge. Talk with your doctors, your CDEs, your endocrinologists, other diabetics. See what they're doing to add assistance to themselves. And we're going to make it through.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Justin. Good to see you again, and we'll talk again.
Sounds good. What do you think about Michael's experience using the Tandem and Medtronic pumps and his transition? Have you done the same? Let us know in the comments. Have you moved from one pump to another, one CGM to another? I'd love to hear before and afters and have you on the show. Thanks for listening to the episode. I'm Justin, and I'll see you next week.